Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mindful Movement. And I have to say, it's been a little bit since I've been up on here. I think the last episode was 2 months ago, maybe a little over 2 months. And the episode was on cats. If you look at all the other things that I've done, I feel like there's more practicality into the subject matter. And, I did an experiment on Instagram. I do have a sense of humor, so one of the options was cats, and lo and behold, everybody picked that, so I did an episode on cats. But when I look back, I feel like it just didn't fit the purpose of this channel. So anyways, here I am, 2 months later, regrouping, pondering, thinking about the direction of where I wanted to go. And, I've recorded this episode a couple times. Number one, mainly because I didn't have my volume setting correctly, the input volume on the mic, and it made for editing really challenging. And again, those are things you learn from by just doing and then observing and adapting. And you make the changes and you do what's necessary. So here I am. I think I'm on the third version of this episode. Again, I'm not, and I say again because I've said it 3 times, but this episode is really an episode just to get back into the swing of things. I have a general idea of what I want to talk about, but I don't have a script prepared, and I'm kind of feeling it out in each moment of what I'm talking about, whether I want to say it or not. And there's a good reason for that, because there's a lot of good stuff, a lot of challenging stuff, a lot of struggles for sure that I've been kind of, dealing with in the last 2 months. A lot of triumphs for sure. A lot of triumphs, but still a lot of struggles. One of those struggles it goes back to Capoeira. Back in March, somebody who I, hold in high regard kept telling me to open up my game. And what that means is that, like when you play defensive or you're used to playing, aggressive people, you kind of close off your game. You don't open up. You're not as vulnerable. And that changes the dynamic of how you play. And I listen to that. I'm trying to apply it. I'm trying to interpret that into the game, because apparently I've been playing like this a very long time. And then, that was in March. I went to San Francisco. That's part of the reason why I hadn't been back to the channel, because I was doing a lot of traveling. And in that San Francisco trip, this kind of theme picked back up, but it was a little bit different. It was more about, it manifested itself in a different way. Actually, it manifested itself with a knee to the back of the head and a trip to the ER. And it wasn't a, violent, incident. Is more than somebody defending themselves with equal skill or higher skill. And they got me in the back of the head, which led to me having some symptoms of concussion and then ending up in the ER. And, in that trip, there was the scare. There was, they came back after the results of the MRI and the CT scan. And they said, "Hey, it looks like you have a brain bleed." And that freaked me out. It made me really think about like, oh, wow, what am I doing? And, is this a result of the way I play, what I'm compelled to do in the game, how I show up? If you're from our group, if you know Mestre No, you know a famous, phrase that he coined back when he was 16, capoeira na roda, capoeira na vida. And if you look at that, you'll see that you can often find deeper correlations in your life by just looking at your game, how you show up in the roda. And so I started doing that. And, I took a deep dive and I realized that, wow, I played the way I do in the roda because I have a fundamental discomfort with being vulnerable. It's not a new thing. Apparently that's a common thing, people having an issue with being vulnerable. But it was interesting to see how that manifested in the game. And then the response to a perceived vulnerability and what you do. And for me, if I felt there's a couple of different things. When I was in San Francisco, I played a number of people. There was one person I played that I was very cautious with because I've played him before, and I've ended up with a bloody nose. And so I played differently because of that, but it was definitely a close game. And one of the lessons that I learned from my first mess today is, take your time, be patient with yourself, and trust in your capoeira. Trust in your capoeira. If you train, and if you train diligently, meaning you develop the skills that you need to develop in order to handle the circumstances and the situations that present themselves in the halda, trust in that. And that's another topic, is like trust, right? Trusting in yourself, trusting in another person. Interestingly enough, when we start really getting into the dynamics of a game, it's very analogous to, interpersonal relationships, interactions. And how do you navigate conflict? How do you navigate, flowing with each other? How do you navigate, trying to create something beautiful? And sometimes when you're trying to create something, you do have to be vulnerable. And for me, even my mess today, somewhere around that same time, talked to me about the idea of vajiação, just playing with respect, playing with, just openness, and allowing the game to unfold. And so, these are some ideas, these are some topics, vulnerability, opening up, playing with respect, trusting in yourself, but then trusting in your capoeira, trusting in what you have, the work that you have done. One of the things I noticed in this interaction is that my response to being vulnerable compels me to try to control the game and to give myself the upper hand somehow. And so anyways, here I am, contemplating all of these things. In a month after that, I'm going to Brazil. And one of my closer friends in Capoeira comes to me and he's like, hey, I had some feedback. I just didn't know when to tell you. I think, go right before you go to Brazil is good. It's not. And he spent a lot of time in Brazil and definitely has more experience than I am. And, the feedback that he gave was very insightful, very constructive, and I really appreciated it. And one of his suggestions was to just go in and let go. And, I heard the message, there was a lot in that. There was, like, let go so you can let it flow. Right. But what was packed into that statement? I don't know. You can hear something in it. It could mean 3,000 different things to different people. Each person can take something different. They can extrapolate that phrase, and then they can associate it with something in their own experience and get something completely different. So for me, I heard it at face value. I understood what the statement was saying, but I don't think I really touched the depth of what that meant until later on. So here we are in Brazil. I go to Brazil. A lot of people from the US went. It was good. It was really good to see and experience this and share those experiences. And one of the things I noticed, I'm trying to be aware and cognizant of just flowing and letting go and opening up my game. But there's a difference between trying to apply something mentally and then trying to apply something viscerally. And there's some magical things when you look inside what happens in the halda, is that a lot of times you don't have time to think and you start reacting. And when you do try to think and be aware and be intentional, sometimes that can slow you down. And when you're trying to flow with somebody and you're too much in your head, there's going to be a disconnect. Or you will just do whatever the simplest thing that you know how to do, and or your base program your base programming. And when I looked at these initial games when I was in Brazil, I could see that there was a regression. I wasn't playing at the level that I normally was playing, that I would play at if I was playing here. And it took me a while to really like understand what was going on. Like it seemed counterintuitive. But when I really got down to it, I realized that number one, I was in my head because, well, here we are in Brazil. There's tons of mess today, tons of people more experienced than I am. Mess today knows there. Here I have all of these ideas and things floating around that are theories and concepts that I'm playing with. And I haven't really spent a lot of time practicing them, embodying those things, and I'm experimenting. And, interestingly enough, in experiments, a lot of experiments fail. Actually, in business, like if your experiments don't fail, then you're really not experimenting enough. And in this, here I am and I'm experiencing, yeah, I learn from the failures. Actually, this is kind of like my review on the learnings from the failures that I've seen trying to employ something different. And I realized that, yeah, I was just weighing too much into my head. I was too self-conscious. I was, not allowing me to just be me. And it wasn't until later on in the trip, a smaller event. We went to Paraíba, another state in Brazil, the second half of the trip. And it was really good because I felt like the pressure had been reduced. And I was, and a number of people commented on, hey, I think that was the best game that I think you played it while you've been in Brazil. And I looked at that and I was like, yeah, it's because I don't feel like there's this pressure for me to be a certain thing here. And the whole time I'm also trying to translate these concepts into how I move. And I come to realize that it's like, it's not something you have to do extra, which is funny. It's to actually let go, to open up, right? Is returning back to your natural self. And what do I mean by that? It's later on in your life when you start internalizing experiences and you learn that, oh, I should be closed off because of fear or whatever life has done to you that has caused you to form these programs in your mind. Those are the things that block the flow of life, block the flow of the game, block the ability to open yourself up to the world, to not perceive everything or, to not react to that feeling of thrill or discomfort in a way that blocks you from receiving the flow of life. And when that hit me, it hit me and it just seemed so simple to just do less. You don't have to worry. You train in a controlled environment. You condition yourself and then you relax and then you trust in that. And when you do that, things will flow. You'll notice a difference. So when I came back from Brazil, we had one of the monthly holidays and, I played a couple games. I was tired though. I was, 100% I was tired. I flew from Brazil the day before from 5 a.m. Got here in the States like 6. It's like an all day thing. And then, we have class and then the holiday. It was a long day. While I'm playing, I do notice a difference with how I showed up. The first game was way more playful. It was a fun game. The other games, some of these games I played for 10 minutes or 8 minutes. Didn't even really feel it. And then the person who came to me with the suggestion or the feedback, maybe to let go, he later messaged me and he's like, hey, did you feel like our game flowed a lot more? And I said, yeah, do you? And he said, 1000% or something like that. And I was just doing less. I wasn't trying to force anything. I was just playing my game. And it's an interesting thing, like this concept of letting go, opening up. It's, I realized that it's a shedding of an additional layer of some mind stuff. Most of these things, well, some people might say that it's also body, and I do agree with that. But I think it's more of like shedding the stories in your head, listening to the feelings and the sensations, because they're good indicators. But instead of reacting to the narratives that we've kind of formed in our heads, just listen to what, our body's saying. If a kick is coming at us and we want to move out of the way, we move out of the way. But we don't have to like jam pack a whole bunch of narrative. And I think that's the trickiest thing is like, reacting under pressure or responding under pressure. There's two different things. Responding is you're choosing, and that requires a bit of awareness. Reacting tends to be subconscious, and those are more, when you are trying to be intentional, right? And you're trying to flow, sometimes the reactions, the subconscious programming that tends to block the flow is going to hinder your ability to intentionally flow. And it takes training and conditioning, and it takes a choice to say, hey, nope, I'm not going to do that. So I think it was just a lot of awareness. And then the simple realization that to let go and to open up and to be vulnerable is a matter of not doing more things, but just a matter of doing less. So, there was a lot more I was going to say. I will save it for another episode. I think this one pretty long, but that was kind of what was on my mind for the last couple months. And again, I'm discovering this, this is a journey. I don't have all this stuff figured out. There are some things that I'm passionate about. There's some things that I've learned about, things that have helped me, and maybe they can help you. That was another thing that I was also pondering is like, what really is this channel? So here it is. So feel free to like and subscribe. Definitely. If you have any comments on any of this stuff, definitely share it below. And if you have any tips or you have any experience with letting go and its benefits or opening up or allowing yourself to feeling vulnerable, let me know. Let me know in the comments. And until the next episode, have fun. Remember to play. Maybe try doing less. Try letting go. See what it does in your life. I'll see you around.